telling yourself, you know what, I don't know it, and it's okay that I don't know it, and that's why I'm here to learn it.
Do you ever have so many questions and no one to ask, so they're just wasting away on Google searches you'll forget about in an hour or so?
We had that same problem, and that's why we created the RD2BE podcast, a resource for dietetic and nutrition students looking for answers that their peers don't have.
We are students Macy and Emily and registered dietitian Carl Barnes. We engage in conversations and learn from RDs.
Join us weekly as we gain insight into the unique journeys of registered dietitians all over the country.
Welcome back to another week of the RD2BE podcast, where each week we bring you interviews with registered dietitians from various backgrounds to kind of enlighten you on the many pathways and career opportunities within the dietetic profession. Hoping to kind of open students' minds as you're still in the process of becoming a dietitian. So this week we're joined by an outpatient dietitian. Precious Nwokeleme works in a weight management clinic, which we have not actually interviewed a weight management dietitian. My experience is very minimal. I've only worked about a year in that setting, so I'm very excited to have you here today. So welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Emily. I am the RD2BE podcast host with Macy. I'm a junior at the University of Maryland.
Hi, I'm also Macy, and I'm a junior at the University of Maryland studying dietetics. Precious, I just wanted to start off by asking you, how did you know you wanted to become a registered dietitian?
Well, that's a long story, but believe it or not, when I first started college, I didn't know what I wanted to study. So I was good at chemistry at the time. That was way before I took Orgo. So good at chemistry and thought, my family is in healthcare. My mom's a nurse. My dad also works in healthcare. And, kind of the expectation was kind of do something in healthcare. So I looked at healthcare, chemistry, and fell on pharmacy. So I was a pharmacy student or taking prereqs for pharmacy for a huge majority of college until I was taking anatomy and physiology over the summer. And my professor was really interested in nutrition. At the same time, coincidentally, I got diagnosed with prediabetes, and I went to my doctor and asked like, what should I do? Like my A1C was like a 5.7. Like I'm scared. Like I don't want to get diabetes. And he I don't want to put him down, but he says, eat more fruits and vegetables. That didn't do much for me. So I kind of went online and kind of Googled like healthy, like how to reduce prediabetes. I tried a keto diet. I tried intermittent fasting. And not to bring down those diets, but they weren't sustainable at all for me. I was really hungry all the time. I hated food. I was scared to eat. So I kind of, tried to look for an easier way to do it. And so when my teacher was talking about nutrition, I kind of went online and thought I would find some kind of nutrition certificate to aid my pharmacy degree. And then I found the Eat Right website, the academy website, went down that rabbit hole, and and here we are. So instead of applying to pharmacy schools out of community college, I applied to dietetic programs, and haven't turned back ever since. So I was about a sophomore in college at that time when I found out that nutrition was even a degree. So I didn't know that.
So what programs were you looking at when you were looking to transfer from community college to a dietetic school? Like what schools did you have in mind? Why did you want to go there? Like what made their program stick out to you?
Honestly, I didn't think anything really stood out to me. It was just at the time I was really thinking about, you've been in college for a few years, you can't really spend a lot of money in college right now, and I wanted to be in state. So Maryland, University of Maryland was kind of my top choice. I also applied to, of course, Morgan and Eastern Shore. I also applied to a few schools out of state, just in case I get matched. I get in, not matched, oh my God, just in case I get in there. But at the time, I think I kind of just looked at all the schools. I looked at the school as a whole, and saw if the school was really good. And like the one thing you really have to notice is that nutrition isn't in a lot of programs. So I had to apply for the schools that I saw available.
So when applying for a dietetic internship, what did you do in undergrad that made you more competitive?
Well, I did a lot of things. I think the first thing that I did was I made sure that my grades were good. Like really making sure that my grades were really good. That I got C's. Okay, I don't want to say I didn't get C's. Like I got C's in like a few classes, but I tried as much as I can to make sure that my grades were the best that I could. I even retook a biochem class, but not just that, I also made sure that I joined a lot of different activities, like with the SDA at UMD. They have a great volunteer programs that people do. I'm pretty sure they do something at least a few activities a semester. It's a little off now because of COVID, but those are some things that I did. I also got a minor, and I was served on the advisory board of the Global Poverty minor. So that really showcased a lot of leadership as well. I worked in the food pantry. I really got to know Dr. Yu and her. She runs like a summer program for kids. So I really got to do that. I got to cold call some dietitians and shadow them. Um, just a lot of different things. I also got to know earlier on what programs I wanted to apply to, internships, and kind of started asking past interns, started emailing the program directors to learn more about their programs of open houses. When I do go to open houses, kind of make sure that I talk to them. I have a slight advantage that my name is Precious, and you don't get a lot of Preciouses out there. But trying to make a good impression so that when they do read your application down the line, at least they can put a face to the name. So those are some of the few things that I did.
That's awesome. Yeah, we interviewed Dr. Yu actually a few weeks ago on the podcast. So when talking about like SDA and different clubs and organizations that you were a part of, how do you think that helped you like advantage wise when you were applying for your internships and even now in the workplace?
I think a big thing is, well, it showed that I was a well-rounded student, that I did more things than just go to school. I went to school, but I was also part of the community. It also helped a lot with time management, because when you're in all of these things, you are making commitments to each of them. At the same time, you want to put your best foot forward. So when people see that you're doing a lot of things and you're doing them well, it shows that you can really manage your time. And an internship, I like to describe, is like having a full-time job and going to school at the same time, right? You have to work 40 hours a week, sometimes a bit more, depending on your preceptor. And also depending on the program you go to, you have classwork to do. You have projects and assignments to do. So it's making sure that you basically can handle the workload a bit. Also, it's also makes you really see what kind of things that you're interested in. Like nutrition it's not a monolith. So when you're doing different things that are nutrition adjacent, you can honestly see different connections and different things that you might not really have thought that would go well with nutrition.
So how do you feel that like your undergrad courses helped you like during your internship? Or do you feel like you learned more in the internship than you did in undergrad?
I think a little bit of both. I think they complement each other really well. The good thing about undergrad is you learn the background knowledge of things. Like by the time you guys started taking M&T and stuff, even I think nutrition assessment, Dr. Yu would start inviting like guest speakers to talk to you guys. And while you're sitting in there, it won't make a lot of sense what they're talking about until you get to the internship. So with taking the classes, you get the background knowledge. You get to learn what diabetes is in depth. You get to learn not even just nutrition classes. Like after taking Biochem 2, I really appreciate it. Really helped when taking advanced human nutrition, because then you get to see the connection with both of the classes. But you really get to learn the background knowledge, get to do a lot of case studies. And then when you're doing your internship, you're basically doing live case studies all day. But also you learn a lot also in your internship, because you're now like working with actual real life people, where in the classroom it's almost like a picture perfect patient, almost, where you see what the problem is by just reading the book. But when you're dealing with a real life person, it's really complicated. Now you're dealing with someone who has food preferences, you're dealing with someone who probably works 40 hours or more a week. You're dealing with someone who doesn't like broccoli. You're dealing with people who have other things um, as well than just nutrition, right? So you're dealing, so you have to like learn how to balance all of that. So undergrad teaches you the basics, and then the internship kind of reinforces that in a way. So they're two and two. That being said, I kid you not, I probably worked into my internship like I don't know anything at all. Like the terms sound familiar, but it's like I know I learned that, but I don't remember exactly what it is. So you are going to learn a lot. You're going to do a lot of review in your internship, and also learn things that you probably didn't learn in your internship in your undergrad program.
Awesome, great. So I'll like kind of going back to organizations and stuff. I saw that you were a part of the Campus Pantry and you were an intern for them. So would you at University of Maryland? So would you mind describing what that is a little bit and like what you did at when you were working there?
Yeah. So the Campus Pantry is basically a place that provides food for students and faculty that are suffering from, well, not really suffering, but have food insecurity. And the thing that I did not realize is that a lot of students and faculty members are food insecure at University of Maryland. Sometimes you think that if someone can pay for school, that they can pay for food, but that's not the case a lot of times. And also, food is something basic, that people need. Like if I'm hungry, I can't concentrate on anything that I'm doing. And it's this real shame that some people have to contemplate between paying rent and eating, or buying books and eating. So with something like the Campus Pantry that is actually built for students, once a week we open the pantry up, and you basically come in and take as much food as you want on Fridays. Now with faculty, they're limited to two Fridays a month, but students are open for all Fridays a month. So it's kind of that we partnered with things like the Capital Area Food Bank. We partnered with Bagels and Grind. I'm pretty sure they're still there. So I graduated like 2 years ago. To kind of open up and help students out with food. We do a lot of food drives, and sometimes too we also buy food. So it's basically a resource that was built for students that are food insecure and students who have trouble buying meals. The great thing about the pantry is that it's very, very confidential. So we do get people who come there who don't want people to know their story, because it can be a real shameful thing. And sometimes people just want to talk. So we try not to take pictures of people. We don't ask you for your name. Well, we do ask for your name to kind of keep track of people who come in, but we don't like store it. Once the semester is done and we've collected the data to show dining services, to show people that, hey, the pantry is actually something, please donate money. After that, we shred all the paperwork, and no one knows what students came there. And I feel like that way is a great way to like help keep students' identity safe, but also help them at the same time. Yeah, we also partnered with the farmers market. Actually, my boss was the farmers market manager, Larry Tumman.
So do you still stay in contact with people you worked with at the pantry?
Yeah, I do talk to Larry from time to time to know how the pantry is doing. Especially now with COVID, and I know that before, like they switched up the they switched up how they were doing things because of COVID and more students needed food. So I know that they started giving food out more times than they would, and they went outside, because before, when I was there, it was at the basement of the health center. So I think they moved to a different location to give more food out. So unfortunately, I haven't been back to University of Maryland in a while, but I do keep in touch with Larry and Allison. Alice, yeah.
That's awesome. So I know that you were in a distance program for your internship. So how would you describe your experience as a distance dietetic internship?
It was great, honestly. It was, don't get me wrong, it was lonely and great at the same time. The great in the sense that I did Aramark's distance dietetic internship. And the great thing about Aramark is you don't have to find your own preceptors. It's because they're a company, and so they have dietitians and preceptors all over the country. You just pick the state or the city that you want to be in, and you basically get to work for Aramark employees. Now that's the good side, but also the bad side is you are almost certainly going to be the only intern at your site. So unless you know other interns or have other friends that matched with you, you're kind of going at it alone at your individual site. But that being said, the program directors, they're there every step of the way, guiding you and helping you, making sure that you're getting everything that you need. A good thing that I did was immediately I got the names of all my fellow interns, I think all 40 of us. I created a GroupMe. And with a GroupMe, we all kind of got to know each other way before we did our orientation in August. So because we're all kind of going through the same thing, we probably have the same questions. So, when we had like a bunch of assignments that we had to turn in before orientation. So going through that with other interns, makes you feel less of alone at the same time. And also you have like cohorts. Like we had our clinical starts, we had our community starts, we had our management starts. So all the clinical start interns were kind of together in this subset GroupMe, kind of helping each other. Hey, did you do this assignment? Like, I don't get that. How did you find out? What book did you use? Kind of get it, because we're all kind of in clinical at the same time. And I started with clinical. And I was terrified of starting my first internship as a clinical intern. But having that kind of support of my fellow interns of the program, and also the preceptors, made it feel a lot less lonely. But you are the only intern like on site, so that can get a little bit lonely sometimes.
So how did you get the most out of the internship to prepare you for your first job as an RD?
Asking a lot of questions and learning to not say no. So when they say, Precious, do you want to do this? Yes. Do you want to do that? Yes. We're going to do this? Yes. I feel like that's the best way, because your internship is the best time of your dietetic career. That's the time you get to be a student and people are willing to teach you. Not that they're not willing now to teach you, but you have the time to kind of be a fly on the wall for a lot of things. Like you get to sit in on meetings. You get to sit in, maybe if you're lucky, on a surgery. You get to sit in and watch other healthcare professionals work. Like I got to shadow an SLP, a speech language pathologist. I got to shadow respiratory therapists doing their work. So that's the great time you get to see how everything is connected. But at the same time, being that I work now in weight management and basically all I'm doing is nutrition counseling, I really got the opportunity to really talk to patients, right? Because a lot of that, you don't do that when you're a student. But when you're an intern, for the most of it, you are talking to patients. And the first time you do it, you're gonna mess up. You're gonna stutter over your words, you're gonna look at your paper, you're going to like glance at your preceptor saying, save me, because I don't know what to say. But the more you do it, the better you get at it. And that's basically what you're going to do as a dietitian. The good part is when you're doing it as an intern, someone else is signing your notes. So that's a time that you really get to do a lot of trial and error and ask a lot of questions and take a lot of notes. Don't feel like, oh my God, I'm supposed to already know this. That could be the case, but like if you the answer to an unasked question is always going to be no. And you might as well ask then and get over with it, or try to figure it out by yourself a little bit later, and then feel bad that you didn't ask when you could have. Preceptors are willing to answer questions. Yes, of course. Sometimes you should like maybe look it up in your book, maybe Google it on your own. Maybe maybe when you ask a question and they answer it, write it down in a notebook. I literally had like a notebook I carried around with me as an intern. Like basically anything anybody said, I would write it down. So that way you're not asking them the same question 1,500 times. So you have like something to reference back. But the biggest thing is asking questions. And now as a dietitian, I'm also asking a lot of questions because I've been a dietitian since July. It hasn't been that long. So there's a lot that I still don't know. So asking the dietitians that trained me and, at looking up on my Gene Inman or my nutrition pocket guide for answers to things is also like a good way, to learning to be a lifelong learner is the best thing that helps me, get the best out of my internship. And also learning time management, learning that time management and sticking to it. Sticking to it.
So speaking of time management, what was your schedule like for your internship? Like, were you able to do things outside of the internship, or were you just mainly focused on that?
At the time, I was mainly focused on the internship. I didn't work during my internship because no one was hired. I wasn't say during hiring. A lot of places wanted someone who would work during the weekdays, and I couldn't. So for my clinical, my schedule was from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then after that, I would come home and I would do some assignments, prep, read up. Sometimes we would have exams as well. So that's kind of what I did. I helped my mom with her business a lot of the time too. So I kind of was doing 2 jobs at a time. So I think that was mainly a lot for my clinical. For my community rotation, it was a little bit the same. It was around from 8 to 4 in the morning. And then after that, would go home, do assignments, do readings, prep for the next day, and like read up on things that my preceptor asked me to read up on, because sometimes preceptors do give you homework on top of your homework. So you have to take it with a smile and do it. And say yes. So sometimes that's what sometimes that's what some of the things that I would work on.
So how did you obtain your first job? What was the application process like for you?
It was rough. It was a bit rough. I passed my RD exam in July. Studying for the RD exam is a whole beast, a whole podcast to talk about. So after passing the exam, I took, I think, maybe a weekend off, and then I started applying for jobs. The thing is, I became a dietitian in the middle of a pandemic. So that was rough looking for work. A lot of places weren't hiring. A lot of places wanted people who already had clinical experience. So that was a little bit harder. But the good thing is I applied to a lot of places, and a lot of times I got interviews. So the first interview, maybe not the best. The second was a bit shaky. But the more interviews I did, the more confident I got, the better, I sharpened up on some answers, because sometimes interviews ask you the same 4 or 5 basic questions. So you just sharpen up on those answers a little bit more. So by the time my current job, Core Life, it interviewed me, I was almost like a little bit of a pro at doing interviews. I think there was a time I had like 2 interviews in the same day. I don't know what I was thinking. I really don't know what I was thinking. So, so by the time Core Life called, I was a bit of a pro at the interviewing process. And the good thing is they do hire a lot of new grads. So that was also a big thing that really helped a lot. But yeah, I was a big pro at doing interviews, so it was a bit easier to get the ball rolling by the time they called. Yeah, but it was hard. I got the job offer in October and I started applying in July. So it took me a little bit, like around 3 months. Some people get earlier, right? I have a lot of friends that got a job while they were still an intern. I had a lot of friends who got their job like while they were still studying for their RD exam. So it really, really varies. Luck has to do a little bit of luck has to do with it. Right place, right time has a lot to do with it. And sometimes you're just like me, you're finished up and you're just rolling and applying for that. But something that did help was LinkedIn. I think right out of my internship, I updated my LinkedIn profile to the best of my ability. I think I put on there that I'm ready to work. So sometimes recruiters do go on there and like shoot someone an email and, hey, do you want a job? Do you want an interview for a job? So I subscribe to Nutrition Jobs. She has an Instagram, but I also subscribe to her newsletter. Indeed, you can go on Indeed and also go on Indeed and like search up some jobs that you want and just put like a little bit of a timer, like, hey, whenever a job that has this post come up, like shoot me an email. Also looking for jobs that are a lot of times nutrition adjacent. So looking for a lot of food service managers, looking for patient service managers, looking for food and marketing specialists, looking for nutrition coach, health coach, corporate wellness, like all these different terms also help, because sometimes some people might not put dietitian, they might not even put nutritionist. So you have to look for a lot of different jobs and like read the job description to see, okay, this is something I can do, this is something I can't do. And also don't be afraid to apply to jobs that you are not a perfect T for. Like sometimes even if they say, like 1 year experience, apply. You might get it. And you're just gonna have to learn on the job. That's what we all end up doing anyway. So it's just, being able to like apply to a lot of different places really did help. And also on LinkedIn, you can also set preference to get job notifications as well on LinkedIn. So most times I get on LinkedIn and most times I get on Indeed, and sometimes just cold calling, hey, are you guys hiring? Asking friends, like, do you know a place that's hiring? Like it was a full-time job, applying for a job.
So you do nutrition management or weight management right now.
Yeah.
So is that what you wanted to do, or what, like when you were out of your internship, you passed the exam, what were you looking for in a job? I know that we're in the middle of a pandemic, so I didn't know if you were selective, if you were open to anything, like what your mindset was when applying.
I just wanted a job, if I'm being completely honest. I don't think some people might think I'm wrong. As a fresh grad, I don't think I was in a position to be selective at that point. Some people might think that I'm completely wrong. I can safely say that I am not a clinical dietitian at all. I appreciate and respect clinical dietitians, but I'm not clinical. So but I applied to a lot of clinical jobs because I just needed I needed a job. I needed the experience. I need something on my resume that says you're not a new grad anymore and that you've done something. So that was kind of my mindset. That being said, I wanted to do nutrition counseling. I took a peer counseling class in undergrad for one of my electives, and I loved it. It was one of the best classes in the world to get to, just talk, like listen. You do a lot of listening than talking. That's something you really learn to do. Do a lot of listening and talk, a lot of summarizing, a lot of reflecting, then talking. Do a lot of guiding, because a lot of times in clinical, or just nutrition aspects and nutrition in general, we're taught to educate. We're taught to talk to people and tell them what they're doing wrong. But a lot of times in counseling, you're doing a lot of listening, right? And when you're listening, you're learning more about the person, and they are directing you what their goals are and how they want you to help them. So you are being their guide, but they're in the driver's seat. You're in the passenger seat, they're in the driver's seat. So that's a lot of things that I learned in that peer counseling class that I said, you know what, I want to do this. So I might end up doing nutrition counseling for a while. That being said, I do see myself doing a lot of different things as well. Like I've never been that person to just do one thing. Like even in undergrad, I was working at the Campus Pantry. I was also a nutrition staff writer for the Campus Trainer. Like that's it's a blog on University of Maryland. I think it's still going on. I don't know. But I did that because I wanted to get into creative writing more, and reach more people through blogging. And so I wanted to work on my writing skills. I applied and I got the job. So I want to do a little bit of that, a little bit of other side things, like maybe creating infographics or PowerPoints and stuff like that, which I already do for someone who helped me do my RD exam. Now, once in a while, I make PowerPoints for her and handouts for her. So it's something that I like doing, but I'll probably end up being in nutrition counseling for a while.
So sorry, I'm just gonna rewind a little bit. You mentioned that you had the same type of interview questions. Do you remember any of those interview questions?
Let's see. You got a lot of, why do you want to work with us? You get a lot of, tell me about yourself. You get a lot of, why do you want to be a dietitian? You get a lot of a scenario-based questions, like having a difficult patient. How would you deal with the difficult patient? You get a lot of, what are some qualities that make you the best candidate for this job type of questions. What else do you typically get? Strengths and weaknesses. You get a lot of strengths and weaknesses. I hate that question, but you get it a lot asked. You get a lot of, where do you see yourself in 5 years type of questions. Yeah, those are typically the kind of questions that you generally get, like general interview questions. Yeah. Now, if it's something like a long-term care, like I did get a long-term care questions, they might ask you if you have some experience working with an older population. If it's, I've known that for a job, they actually made me do some kind of quiz, like an exam. Like after the interview, they sent me some like questions that I had to answer, some like tube feeding questions or something to answer. So it ranges from different to different. Yeah. And sometimes you might have one person interviewing you, you have two people interviewing you, you might have one interview, and then they might have you come in person and then shadow them work. But beware, it's still an interview, so you haven't gotten the job yet. They just want to see how well you pair with other people. And sometimes too, some people just ask general, just behavior-based questions, like like questions, for example, how would you deal with a difficult friend, or or someone comes to you for nutrition counseling, what would be the first thing that you would do? Type questions. Like a lot of times it's behavior-based, because a lot of the job they will train you. You get, for whatever job you get at least some few days of training. So, but a lot of times too, you can't really change somebody's behavior. So they want to make sure that you are a good fit for their company and good for their company. You're a dietitian. Some things you just have to like learn on your own. Yeah. Or they'll teach you.
So doing weight management, what groups of people do you interact with most? Like adults, children, people that have pre-diabetes? Like what is your typical patient look like?
I think 3 out of 5 patients that I see have diabetes. A lot of patients just want to lose weight for aesthetic purposes. Some want to prevent diabetes. Some want to maybe get some surgery and they need a specific BMI to get that surgery. So it really ranges. I believe the youngest patient we can see is 12. So yeah, I've been there for like 2 months. I haven't seen a patient that young. So a lot of patients I do see are a lot older. I think the youngest I've seen is 23 so far. The youngest patient I've seen so far is 23.
Is there any reason why the youngest is 12?
I think it's the preteen age. I think below 12 years old, I think weight management is the least thing that a kid should be thinking about. But when they're 12, 13, at that point, they're more making choices of what they eat, choosing foods that they eat themselves. And as we know, like the rise of prediabetes in children is rising. So that being said, we don't talk calories with kids. We don't we don't weigh them most of the time. Even if you do weigh them, you don't show them what their actual weight is. But I think we're leaning towards not weighing kids. So you're just teaching just general like basic nutrition. So in that case, even though it's quote unquote weight management, with someone who's 12, 13, 14, 15, we're not doing anything about their weight because they're still growing. They're going to their weight. You're just teaching nutrition basics, right? You're teaching my plate for like all day with kids. Yeah. Unless they have like type 1 diabetes, then that's a little bit different. Other than that, is just general nutrition.
So during your internship, what challenges did you face?
I think the biggest challenge that I faced during my internship was honestly I think the biggest challenge honestly was basically being hard on myself and thinking that I had to know everything going into the internship. But the thing is, if I had to know everything going to the internship, why did I need the internship? So it's kind of that like telling yourself, you know what, I don't know it and it's okay that I don't know it, and that's why I'm here to learn it. I think that was basically a little bit different, a little bit the biggest thing that was a little bit challenging. Also is that like the difference between this is school and school doesn't always translate well into real life. So that was kind of a little bit of the harder thing for me to like wrap my head around most of the time. While even though with a patient, the textbook says this, but in real life, for example, a patient probably has like heart failure or something of that nature. And with heart failure, you're probably going to reduce sodium for them. You're probably going to reduce sodium. You're probably going to make sure that they're not eating a lot of red meat, fatty foods, and stuff like that. But then you throw in, okay, the patient is in their 80s, right? That's a little bit different. So at that point, you are going to enforce those, like give them those diet prescriptions, but you're not going to be as strict as someone you would be as if they were my age or your age, because those are something that you have to take into account. And sometimes I feel like when I was in undergrad, you only look at like this is the disease state and this is how to cure it. But when you're dealing in person, you have to like look at the person and not just the disease state, right? That it's different when you have a person in front of you than when you're just reading off of a paper, essentially. Yeah.
So are you facing the similar challenges in your current job right now, or do you have new challenges that you have to navigate through?
I think No, I'm not facing the same challenge because my internship was for 9 months, so I got used to like figuring out how to really hone in and build my quote unquote clinical judgment as well. So obviously I still go back to the textbooks, but a lot of times too, I look at it, does this make sense for my patient that is sitting in front of me right now? Type of thing. I think I do that a bit more than when I was just fresh out of school intern. As of right now, I think the biggest challenge for me right now is, dare I say, imposter syndrome a little bit, because this is my first job straight out of, so I've been an intern, first time on my own. I'm the only dietitian at my location. So sometimes you're the only one that people, once people know you're a dietitian, they come with all of their nutrition questions, basically. Actually, I had a friend today. She gave me, she was like, Precious, is this okay to eat? And she showed me her her fiber one bar to know whether it's okay for her to eat. So I think that's just kind of that, and just really understanding that even though I'm quote unquote the nutrition expert, I'm not an expert yet. I'm still learning, but also being confident in the skills that I already have, and learning that, okay, yes, I do know this. You know this, you got the job, you did the hard work, you earned your degree, you earned your credentials. Be confident in yourself, but also learning that I don't know everything. I can still go back and do more research when I need to.
So
So what
how have challenges from undergrad and your internship helped you with work? So the stuff that you had issues with back then, how is it helping you now?
I think those is I think the more I think the fear of the unknown, right? Like when you don't know something, you're more scared of it. So, but once you do it the first time and you realize, oh, I survived this, right? Like I remember the first time I ever talked to a patient, and I was so scared that they won't understand it, that I'm probably talking too fast, that it's not going to make an impact in their life, and they're going to go back and keep doing what they were doing. And my preceptor said, girl, chill. If you have more questions, go back in the room and ask, right? You can only do so much, and they choose whether or not they listen to you, right? If you didn't ask them a question today, when they come back for their next appointment, you can ask them if they understood, if they had more questions, and go from there. So I think that was kind of the biggest thing for me, because you want to do the best for your patients, but sometimes we tend to put in a little bit more burden on ourselves, and just unlearn that, like, it's something you just got to work on every single day, and that you're doing fine. Like before you know it, you become a pro at talking to patients. You'll be able to make those connections faster than you did before. You'll be able to come up with examples of like different brands of non-dairy yogurt or something. Like you're not going to be saying the same Chobani or something else all the time. You have more examples. So it just comes with learning. The challenge for me is just learning to just give myself grace, and to like tell myself, you're doing a good job. You can always do better tomorrow, but you did a good job today.
So going back a little bit, you said you did research outside of your job. So what resources do you use for weight management topics or other topics?
So a lot of research, I use like the textbooks that I used. I use the nutrition care manual a lot. Also, Core Life gives us a lot of different resources that we use. Kraus is a book that I use all the time. The nutrition handbook, the Essential Nutrition Handbook, is a great book that I reference all the time. I still go back and look through Jean Inman, the book that I used to study for my RD exam. There is also, before I before I didn't have access to it anymore. UMD libraries, like they have a lot of articles there. The job that I work at now, they also have like a great library of articles that you can go back and research. Eat Right, they have the EAL library. I can't remember the what it stands for right now, but on there they have a lot of different resources as well. Research.
So what is some of the what are the more rewarding parts of your job? Like at the end of the day when you get home, what are you most grateful for with your job?
I'm grateful for my job that I was able to make someone smile. I know that sounds silly, but some people come to us thinking that they can't eat bread, or thinking that they can't eat like their favorite cookie or their favorite ice cream or whatever. And then when you teach them and tell them you can, and then teach them how to incorporate that into their diet, it makes a world of difference, right? And I like to use the rule of adding more things to the diet than taking away. So instead of taking stuff away, just tell them to add more vegetables, add more, your complex carbs, add more proteins, right? Limit, not eliminate. Once you tell them to limit something and not eliminate it, then they can choose when they want to eat their cake. They can choose to eat the cake like on their birthday, once a week. If they're, or sometimes they might choose to eat it once a month, once in 3 months, and that choice obviously is left up to them. But I had a patient last week, and he literally at the end of the session, he asked me how long I've been a dietitian, and I told him that I just became a dietitian recently, and he said, "Thank you for going to school to learn how to teach us." Right? And this is an older gentleman, like in his 50s. And he was like, "You don't know what you don't know. Thank you for going to school." And that made the world of difference, right? Sometimes you're gonna get patients that they don't want to listen to you. Sometimes you get patients that just want you to make them a meal plan, which is not what I do. Maybe make a meal plan and just tell me what to eat. But when you get those patients that really just want to learn and do their best, is the best feeling in the world, right? And also when they achieve their non-scalar scale goals, like they start exercising 3 times a week, or they tried that cauliflower fried rice recipe and they actually enjoyed it, or something of that nature, and they figured out that healthy living or a healthy lifestyle is something that's possible for them because you showed that to them. And also it's something as simple as I didn't make it about their weight. Like the first thing I talked to them about wasn't their weight. It was about their job. It was about their kid. It was about, like, I saw a t-shirt that they're wearing and I referenced that. I saw them as a person than just someone who needs to lose weight. And I tell them too that we can make scale goals, but at the end of the day, we're here to help you build healthier habits, right? And so I think those are the things that when I come home, I'm like, even if the patient gained weight, honestly, from the week before, or they didn't lose weight, but if they did something right that they were struggling with the week before, that makes me happy, because for them, that's something that they're learning to do. I had a patient that said that she didn't like to exercise before, but now she exercises and it helps her sleep better. We know that with better sleep, you're more likely to lose weight, you're more likely to feel better, less stress, and all of that. So it's those little things. I know it's a very cliche answer, but
Yeah, so where did you learn really how to help people change their relationship with food or with themselves? Did you learn that from experience mainly, or also tips from courses or different work experiences?
I tell myself I became the dietitian that I wish that I had when I was 19 years old and pre-diabetic, right? So a lot of times it's because a lot of times I have been, sometimes, and I'm not a heavy person, but I have been told by a lot of people, you need to lose weight, X, Y, and Z. And sometimes you just want someone to just shut up about your weight. and just and not talk about it. So a lot of times is I try to think of how do I want a health professional to treat me? How, if I were in their shoes, how do I want them to treat me? And also experience, right? Like in undergrad, we had to do, I think, two 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 assignments where we had to talk to people who were not dietetic students. So you learn how to talk to people there, and of course during the internship, that's literally all you're doing is talking to people. So you build a lot of that, but at the core of it is a lot of times I wish, this is the type of person that I wish that I had when I had no nutrition understanding whatsoever. I had, like, when I was like 19 and found out about dietetics, I thought that iodine came naturally in salt, not fortified. That's how little of nutrition I knew. So, when I was at that point, how did I want a dietitian to talk to me is kind of always like what I go back to.
Great. So just to, I guess, wrap up, what kind of advice do you want to give to students that are in their dietetic internships, they're in their undergrads, they're maybe even in high school thinking about, I'm contemplating doing dietetics. So what kind of advice do you have for them?
Okay, so someone who high school. I think someone in high school, I'll probably tell them to someone in high school, I'll probably say, I feel like when you are in high school, maybe this is my opinion, I feel like high school students or even freshmen shouldn't go into college declaring a major, because you'll probably change your mind like 1,500 times. But if that's what you really want to do, try volunteering, like volunteer at food banks, talk to dietitians, sometimes just call up a hospital and tell them that you want to volunteer, you want to volunteer in the kitchen or something of that nature. Just do a lot of like researching and to figure out if that's what you really want to do, because the more you know, the less questions you have, and the less surprises that you run into. Someone who is a dietetic student, I'll probably say start earlier on to look at programs that you want to apply to, right? I say this because when they're very competitive, and a lot of times, some people don't know what programs they want to apply to till they're about like junior, senior, which that's around the time you're applying. So start now to kind of compile like a good list of programs that you want to apply to. At the same time, get yourself out there. Get yourself out there. Do as much work as you can, as much volunteering as you can. I'm a person, I feel like people should get paid for the work that they do, even maybe unless it's like some student credit and you're getting like class credit for it. Look for jobs. If you can't, look for volunteer hours that you can do. Even if it's like not even nutrition related, it could be something like at a doctor's office, right? Because at that time you are getting what it feels like to be in a clinical setting, right? At the same time, it could be volunteering at a school. Did my internship, I did mine at Harford County Public Schools. I was a lunch lady for a few days, right? And you get to respect how much work gets is put into lunch meals for students, right? As a student, you don't see that. You come in, you take your food, you pay your $3 or not, and then you take your food. You don't see what happens in the background. So I get to learn a lot of respect for them. But just do as much research and as much volunteering as you possibly can, and just really have fun, right? Talk to a lot of dietitians as well of their experiences, whether they enjoy their job. Think outside of the box, because when I was a dietetic student, all I thought where dietitians worked were in hospitals, right? Until I interviewed and shadowed a dietitian that works at Giant, And I was like, this is so cool. Then I met a dietitian that works outpatient. I was like, this is even better. I met a dietitian that literally all she does is, she works and for a communications company. She does food photography. I've met dietitians that work in the military. Like, you be as curious as possible, ask a lot of questions as possible, look through a lot of things as possible, because that way you get to learn a lot more. Dietitians these days, like, we do so much that it blows my mind, like whether if it's food service or patient services, and all of those things are different places that dietitians work, and not just like inpatient acute care or long-term care. So for an intern, I would probably say start earlier on to look for internship programs that you're interested in and narrow it down and just get as much experience as you can get, and sometimes it doesn't have to be nutrition related, because they want to see that you do a lot more with your life than just nutrition.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all that advice. I'm
course.
sure undergrads and high school students and everybody else, they really appreciate that stuff as well. So thank you very
Thank you.
much.
All right. So many pearls of wisdom. I really appreciate you sharing that, and I especially like the point you made about the undergrad and the internship really being complementary, because I think especially the last couple of weeks I've had that conversation with, I can't even count how many people, of the anxiety that brings, especially for those students that are bridging that. And that's such a key piece that you can never say it enough, right? And for you to have just gone through it and be able to share that, that's fantastic.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. For the students listening, it's too late for this semester's mentorship program. However, RD2BE is going to be continuing to put great stuff out in the interim. As always, you can connect with us directly at the website, rd2be.com, or text in at 202-918-3818. I will have that number memorized sooner than later. So thank you again, Precious. We'll see everyone next week.